and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a public service program for the Special District's May 18th election that is being produced by Capital Community Media via remote technology in collaboration with the community groups of the American Association of University Women, League of Women Voters, Polk and Marion County, and the Salem City Club. For the Salem Keizer School Board election, all candidates were invited and they're all accepted. The candidates were asked to prepare 2-minute opening statements telling about themselves and their qualifications for the elected position. I am Jan Margosian from the Salem City Club, and I'm pleased to introduce school board candidate Karina Guzma Ortiz, who will now begin with her opening statement.
Thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Karina Guzma Ortiz, and I am the proud product of Salem Keizer Public Schools and the proud mother of 2 current Salem Keizer School District students. I'm also the daughter of dedicated and resilient Mexican immigrants. This past year, as so many people know, it's been really difficult to work from home as a parent, and I've faced some of the same challenges that so many other parents have with their school buildings closed. As a former substitute teacher myself, who's been in our classrooms across the district, and a former district student, now as a mom, I know how important it is to want and to have our schools be the best that they can be. And right now our schools are in a crisis. It's been a difficult year. For too long, our students and families' needs and requests have been ignored, and we've lacked the courageous representation on our board. So I want to make sure that we get our students and our children back into the classroom as soon as possible, as safe as possible. And I will bring my experiences as an educator to help our teachers get what it is that they need to support every student in our district. I've dedicated my career to working with children. I earned my master's of social work and have been a parent educator, supporting and guiding parents to be present and to have the tools and resources that they need for their children. I've worked in medical settings, providing behavioral health support to pregnant and parenting women. And most recently, I ran a youth program, so I know what youth need and what they dream. Today, I work at the Early Learning Division at our Oregon Department of Education, working towards quality education for our youngest Oregonians. I'm running because it's imperative that we center the education, the livelihood of our children, our youth, and their families. I'm here to represent all students and families because we need communication between the board and the community, and I will listen.
Thank you very much for that information. The questions that we will use today were developed by the sponsoring groups, and the candidates did not receive them ahead of time. The league has prepared 7 questions, and each candidate has 9 minutes in which to answer them. Not all questions need to be answered, but all the candidates will be given the same questions and the same 9 minutes total time, which includes the time it takes to ask or repeat a question. The candidates' responses to the individual questions will not be timed. And now let's give candidate Ortiz an opportunity to address some questions and topics of concern to our community. Now, our first question is, if elected, in what areas of the school board responsibilities are you particularly interested in?
Thank you. I just have to acknowledge that it's been such a difficult year with COVID that coming on board, if elected, I will definitely and absolutely first and foremost focus on our students re-entering our schools, right? And what is that going to look like? Ensuring that our students and our educators are safe. It's been a difficult year for our students, so we also need to acknowledge that there's been slow learning loss, and we need to address that, as well as the social and emotional impacts that isolation from this last year has brought onto our children. And I've seen that myself as a parent. I've seen my children express some social anxiety, and just talking to friends and family, I know that this issue has impacted so many in our community, and that is going to be my first priority. In addition, and I would say alongside that comes making sure that we have the adequate supports in our classrooms, right? That our teachers, our educators are well supported, and that they have the tools and the resources so that they can support each student. We have classrooms sometimes too large, which have students with very different learning abilities, with different needs, and we need to make sure that we are providing the individual support for all of our students. So those would be my two priorities coming on board once elected.
Thank you. Now let's explore another question. What effects do you think it will have to elect school board members by zone rather than at large?
Yes, this conversation has been brought up in our community, and it's a conversation that I would say has gone on for some time. I know that our Oregon legislature back in 2019 had I believe it's a House bill, targeting the same topic about at-large voting system versus by zone. And so for me, what it would mean to have a by zone voting is that there would be increased representation, right? Folks would have to run in their zones as we do today. However, the effort and the outreach would be focused within those zones. And I think that would call for greater communication, better relationships within those areas. And so we know that this conversation was brought up with our board just a couple weeks ago, and I am interested in seeing where we can move this forward. And I would like to see our district move to by zone voting for these very reasons. Also, to make it more attainable for people who don't usually serve on these positions, right? It can get very expensive reaching out to an entire district. And so this would make it more obtainable and more accessible for people of color and for people who don't usually run for these seats to have that opportunity.
Thank you. Now, in several places in the district policy for the school board, it states that there is to be regular opportunities for public feedback. How is this ensured, and what would you do differently, if anything?
Regular opportunities for public feedback.
Right.
So important. Our school board is here to support and represent our students, our families, our educators. And in order to be effective, in order to be responsive to our community, we have to listen. And it's been difficult with COVID, right? Because we are limited to Zoom, and we know, with this pandemic, the digital divide has been exacerbated. It's been so obvious, and we can't overlook that, right? So we know that not everybody has access to communicating with our board when it comes just to doing that through, virtual calls. So looking forward, I would really like to see our board take on a more inclusive approach, right? That means additional interpretation. That can look like including childcare in our meetings so that we can have working parents participate in those. That also includes us as board members. And, this is something that I'm committed to doing, going out into the community, going out into either it's community events, going out to our schools, because this is really common in my community, right? Like, you have to step into somebody else's home. Once you're invited and you can make it there, you will be welcomed and you can learn. So I would be so happy and pleased to be able to do that, and to just provide additional opportunities to have our community contribute their thoughts, their ideas, their concerns, and do that with an open heart and an open mind, right? It's imperative, I think, that we open those avenues for families, for youth as well. We have to listen to our youth. Our youth are in our schools, and having worked with youth, I know that they are brilliant and they have ideas and they are living the day-to-day of what it is to be in our schools. So it's really important that we listen to them as well. And our educators, because they're the ones in our classrooms who are, impacted by the decisions from our board, the decisions by our district, and who better than our educators to also provide some of that feedback to us. So I just want to say I'm looking forward to increasing those pathways for communication, and it has to be two-way communication.
Thank you. What do you think about the decision to skip standardized testing this year?
Yes, this one for me, it's, I know that our state reached out to the U.S. Department of Education to seeking a waiver for all standardized testing, right? And that wasn't approved, and therefore we've had kind of step back and cut back our standardized testing for our schools statewide. And our district has recently taken the decision, right, to not apply those standardized tests, which I don't feel like I have all of the information. I leaned towards this decision of us not applying standardized testing, because we can look at the greater scope of what has happened over the last year, right? We know that universities and colleges have stepped back from even using the SAT or the ACT for college admissions. And what does that tell us about what standardized testing really is or what its value is? So I think we need to focus more today on making sure that our students are caught up in their learning, that we are providing them the social and emotional supports that they need as we make our way back to schools.
Thank you. What steps would you take to address the disparities in academic performance before the pandemic and now as we transition to in-school instruction?
Right, and those disparities are there, will be there, and some we might be able to observe today, right? I think educators and teachers can tell, okay, my cohort or my group of students is lacking in these areas. And some of those will come 2 or 3 years from now, right? We will continue to see the impacts of this pandemic. And so it's really important that we are assessing our students, that we are communicating with their students and our families, and providing the resources and the supports to our teachers, I think will be really important, that our classrooms are well equipped so that we can pay attention to our individual students and make sure that we are supporting them. Because the truth is there's no one way approach to this, right? Each child is different. Some students have thrived. That I know for sure. Having worked with youth recently, I had youth who were telling me, you know what, I am loving this. I am loving the virtual, there's no social pressure. And there's that is to say, you know, there is so many different experiences within our youth and our students that we have to just be open to what does that look like for this student and what does this student need and how do we support this student? So for me, it really comes back to the individual.
Okay, now we're down to about one more question. With local law enforcement contracts ended, how will the areas of concern that they addressed, how will they now be handled?
Yeah.
And we only have about 45 seconds. So.
All right. So I'll say that as a trained social worker, for me, it's really important that we look at the individual student and say, what if a student shows up to school and is having a behavioral issue, we have to look at the root cause of that. And there may be something going on at home. It may be something more in the community. And so for me, it's increasing our mental health supports in our classrooms and our schools so that we can better support our students and support them in that way, right? Where we're not punishing or disciplining after the fact, but that we are being proactive in supporting our students so that we don't have to rely on extreme measures in forms of disciplining.
Very good. Thank you very much. Now we invite candidate Guzma Ortiz to share her closing remarks, including her campaign contact information.
Thank you so much. You know, I just want to close saying that I've seen our Salem Keizer schools from every side, right? I've seen it as a student, an educator in our classroom, and now as a mother of 2 kids. I graduated from an alternative high school in our district where a lot of students are just wrongfully stereotyped as lost causes. And thanks to the amazing and dedicated educators and teachers, I graduated. And since then, I've dedicated my career to working with families, with children, with youth, and I will bring that experience, my classroom experience and my lived and work experience to serving our students in our district. I'll also bring my passion as a mother to fight for great schools and improved graduation rates. So it's an honor for me to be running on this campaign, and please forward any questions or comments to me at karinafororegon@gmail.com. That's Karina 4Oregon@gmail.com. And you can also visit my website at karinafororegon.com, and that's all spelled out KARINAFOR Oregon.com. So thank you.
Thank you, Karina, for our interview today and for sharing your thoughts. Thanks to Capital Community Media for the extensive efforts made to make this program happen. And thanks to you, the public, for watching in order to become a more informed voter. Remember to vote by May 18th because your vote counts.